Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our school building committee meeting. It's Thursday, June 23, 2022. We will get started today. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the June 9 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Thank you, Chris McNamara, and then second, Rich Weil. Any corrections that anyone has? Tosh, I do want to reword one sentence. Under the OPM update, where it says, it was talking about what the superintendent talked about with security. So the plans will be reviewed and approved prior to opening. Those happened in the past, so maybe we should say the plans were reviewed and approved as part of the design process. Because that happened as, has been going on. So with that slight edit, all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
I'm going to abstain, Randy.
Okay, thank you, Mary. All right, then we're going to flip the order around a little bit to accommodate Al's schedule. So we'll start with a contractor update and then move on from there. So Al.
Okay, I'm going to share screen. Let's see. For some reason I can't see it on the screen here.
Oh, there it's starting to show. There we
What's
go.
showing? Is the pump house showing?
Yeah, the pump house is showing now.
Oh, okay. All right, so these are the photos. Go through these first. So these are the drone photos. This is the pump house area. They've started working on the siding now around the edge of the roof. They've poured the dumpster compactor pads.
Al, is this today?
They've been pouring this for a few days. They've been pouring.
No, I mean the drone flight. Was it today?
Yes, the drone photos are from today.
Great.
This is area B South. You can see the PV panels are complete on area B on both areas of B. The window frames are complete and all the glass is installed on the south face. They're just buttoning up the siding now against the window frames, and they started peeling off the protective cover. So next time you see this, it will be 100% on the south side here.
How are the operable windows? Those are installed there?
Yes, those are all installed on this facade here. Yep. We got a bunch more in today, so we'll be installing those around the rest of the building. All right, this is a shot of the gym roof, the high roof, and the B sections of the roof here. This is a shot around the corner. This is a B east. You can see the siding is done on this section, and the windows are complete here. They were just finishing up these operables up here when we took the shot. Siding is actually in good shape. They're pretty much complete, except you'll see these little white spots where once the windows are complete, they just have to infill and finish their final piece against the window. But they're waiting on other trades to finish, so that's why they're not 100%. This is area A roof. The PV contractor is setting up his racks now on the slope part. And he'll be installing panels there next week. The siding is complete in area A on this east side and north face, and the window frames have been installed. This is just a close-up shot of the PV panels on B north. This was the other day where they were loading the roof with racking material in A. It's a closer up shot of the dump. This is when they were pouring the dumpster pads. This was day before yesterday, I believe. Another shot. This is the framing for the siding. They're almost done with the prep work, and siding should start going on tomorrow. This is a shot where they were framing up the exterior stairs. They've since been poured. These two flights have been poured. They still have this middle section to do, which they'll be framing up tomorrow and pouring up, if not tomorrow, early next week. BB has been installing site lighting around the site of the new building. These are site lighting bases. So once these are done, he'll start prepping sidewalks and get ready for those in the east and south side. This the exterior of B South. You can see all the operable windows are installed. They're going now, putting on the pressure plates, and then they'll put the extension caps on, and then they'll be 100%. It's a close-up shot of the east side of B. These operable windows are complete now. You can see the siding is finished on the north side of B as well. This is a close-up shot of area A. We can see the siding on the east side of A wing here, and the north face is done. The frames are in. They'll be around here in the next couple of days with glass to get these installed.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Come back to the side, to the previous image.
Yeah, this one.
Okay, now you're saying the siding is complete, but there's words on this. What I'm seeing is not the completed siding.
Oh yeah, this is just the protective coating. That the siding comes with this protective coating on it. It's like a plastic sheet that's on it, but it peels off once they're done.
Okay, and that worries me a little. Does that mean that the siding is fragile, that it needs to have a protective coating? How's that going to stand up to kids and weather and stuff?
The siding is not very friendly to chemicals or even fingerprints. The guys that work on the windows, if they have raw siding next to them, they have to wear white gloves, because just the acid from your hands will cause discoloration on the siding.
What does, God, I hope that doesn't portend problems for us down the road. That's very disconcerting, frankly.
Now, what usually happens with that, if I can say something, that when they first peel it off, it's fresh. Once it weathers, it acquires a patina, and it's a self-healing product. So Al is correct that initially when they peel the protective layer off, you got to be careful with the fingerprints, otherwise that's a permanent stain. But once it starts to weather, it oxidizes to a point where it turns to a weathered gray, and then from that point on, it's basically no maintenance. So it's a product that we've used on a lot of schools, but it's just the initial pulling off that protective cover where they have to be careful.
And how long does that period of staining last?
The stain, well, hopefully there's no staining on it. Oh, you
Right,
mean like
but-
when it
Weathering.
acquires its patina?
Yeah,
Within the first, months to a year. I'm not sure exactly what time it is, but the advantage of this is that you don't have to paint it. It's low maintenance, it self heals. It's just that initial putting it in and taking off the protective cover is what you have to be careful of.
so for the first year, we have to tell kids not to touch the building?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a year, but I mean they can if they want, but it just means that you're going to have some fingerprints on it.
All right, got it.
So we try to leave this on as long as possible, while other trades are working there, just so we don't have those
Sure.
problems. So, these are the window frames for area A. This is the admin section. We'll be putting these window frames in next week, and I have all the glass on site. So you'll see building A starting to wrap up as well. These are the clear story windows. Area B is, I think, was finished today. So these are the windows that shine into the classrooms from the roof.
And what is the siding that goes above those windows?
This gets a cement board siding,
Okay.
which they'll start doing next week. The windows had to go in first. Here's the guys installing. This is area B, the high roof over the entryway. And then this is the gym. I'm sorry, the cafe area below these here. This is the wall above the cafe on the B side. This is looking in from one of the classrooms at the clear story. This is area A. It's being drywalled and taped right now. So the painter will be in there following that activity. All the mechanicals are going well. This is the millwork that's continuing in B wing. They're putting in this bench. The windows had to be complete before they could do that, so they've gone back and started doing that now. These are lockers and cubbies in one of the classrooms. Another shot of, this is a finished bank of millwork. You can see where they put the protective paper on top, so we don't get any damage. Workers tend to put their coffee cups or anything else on anything that has a flat surface. So these are the ceiling tiles in area B, which have started to go in. This is the gym. All the trusses now are painted, so the ductwork also has been painted on the ground, and that will be starting to go in next week. The ductwork is painted the same color, this little tan color.
Al, what are the pipes on the left that appear to be insulated? Is that the roof drain?
Yes, those are roof drains. Those were put in. That was the first items that were installed after the roof was done.
Those will get painted as well, right?
Yes. This is the plywood that goes behind the masonry. The mason has started prepping this area, so the masonry walls should be complete in the next couple of weeks. Spray fireproofing is complete behind here as well.
Was this an area where there was some problem?
Yeah, we did have some areas that they had to put in some additional supports at these little stub walls. Yeah, that's all been completed and inspected by Mike, so we're good there. The kitchen area, the fiberglass panels are going in now. This is the kitchen hood over here. This will be going in next week, along with stainless steel panels around this hood area. They'll be going in next week as well. The epoxy floor is scheduled for the second week of July. That's the floor finish here. It's an epoxy finish. And as soon as that cures, all the kitchen equipment will be arriving. Some more
Al,
fiber.
is all the you say all the kitchen equipment is everything actually going to arrive? Are
The
we
only
gonna be
thing
short
that,
something.
yeah, well, we're short the cooler freezer, or the walk-in. The walk-ins are coming late. And we have a couple of late items, but it doesn't really affect the end date.
How late for the cooler?
Let me check the schedule. We had a separate schedule just for.
Your procurement log from Ben L shows cooler freezer October 3rd with the accelerated option. So it's not November, it's pulled back to October.
Okay, yep.
And just to address Chris Keepner's comment with regard to the kitchen equipment, the lion's share of the kitchen equipment has been arrived in stored materials, as we call it, in the insured warehouse for a number of months. So that equipment has started coming in pretty early, which is good because a lot of projects are having trouble with their kitchen equipment last minute. So that's been good.
Yep. All right, moving on. The last slides here are about the infrastructure that's going on. Square D is the company that manufactures the electrical equipment here. They were in today. They started up and tested the switch gear for the main power. These are the panels that switch gear feeds. So you can see they're tying in these panels. These are the feeders. These are all the branch circuits. So they're getting a lot of the infrastructure ready. So when we do get permanent power, which we're hoping they're going to energize on Monday, that we'll be able to get rid of our temporary service in here and start running off the building power.
And Square D did the final sign off. I know they were there past noon.
Yeah, I had not heard if we got the final yet.
I know it was looking good based on the initial discussions. It was just a final crossing T's and dotting I's.
Al, could you go back a couple of slides and maybe one of you can tell us, it's in one of the simpler panels. Right there, that one.
Yep.
The white gizmos, what have we got going on toward the bottom of the box?
You mean these here?
I'm thinking those are the meters that are going to be relayed to the computer's information system, whatever, but I don't know. I'm curious what they are.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They're definitely line power. They're not low voltage. But I'm sure it's got a little screen here.
I
I'm not
believe
sure.
you're correct, Chris.
And those two things are connected, I mean, are related to one another? The two white objects in some way?
I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
This is a photo of we started putting in the pumps and piping the pumps in. They've got a lot of the heat pumps in now that they're started to install. So a lot of the HVAC and electrical is starting to come together. And that's the last photo.
Okay, are there questions on the things you've just seen? Okay, Then in terms of sketch, thanks for those pictures, Al. But in terms of schedule, are there any notable changes?
Actually, I was just working on schedule. I just logged in here to see where we stood with our schedule compared to the FF&E.
Right, because the FF&E is scheduled to arrive early September.
Right. So this is area B upper. Our schedule right now shows us creating a punch list and finishing the punch list by 8:15. And then the FF&E doesn't come till 9/6. So right now we have a 3 to 4 week buffer between our construction and when the FF&E arrives. Same up here. There's a buffer here between. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
This
Except I see area B upper. What's the upper? What region?
It's
Area B lower. Okay.
area B lower. Then if you go to
Area A.
area C lower, you see there's a gap again. So we do have some fluff. It's not tight at all. But area C upper, it has almost a month there before. The gym, I think the gym is going to be not like the other areas. The gym is it's a large space. We have to get it conditioned. We have to have the slab just right for that floor to go in. I'm worried about the floor only in that we may have to wait to install it. We may have to wait until after FF&E to install it. Last thing we want to do is put the floor down when we don't have the proper conditions. And without the DOAS unit, we really don't have the permanent HVAC in place. We have temporary units.
For the committee's background, the gym is important for the FF&E because they need to utilize that area to stage the delivery and assembly and use it as the hub from which to dispense all the furniture. So to Al's point, the furniture folks don't necessarily need the wood floor there. And if the wood floor is there, it needs to be protected, obviously. So having the concrete floor there is acceptable from the standpoint of installing the furniture. The only thing we can't do is have it be halfway baked one way or the other. So we'll obviously keep coordinating on that, but Al, you answered my question with regard to, I was just about to ask about the wood floor in the gym.
Yeah.
So what are the conditions that are necessary for installing a wood floor?
Well, right now it's they've given us a test that we have to do, and it's the old test where you tape a piece of polyethylene plastic to the slab, and then you check it after a day and see if there's any moisture under it. That's the test they want. But the spec calls for that slab to have the permanent HVAC system running before that goes in. And we can try to duplicate what it's going to be like, but it's a decision we're going to have to make when we get ready to accept the flooring.
So is the concern that there would be moisture in the air or moisture coming up through the concrete?
My concern would be maintaining the conditions, the environmental conditions. If you get a week of rain, it's a lot of humidity, and I don't know the temporary systems that we have could really keep it to where it should be, environmental-wise, humidity and temperature.
Both.
So my question is still there. Are you worried about humidity in the air or coming up through the concrete?
We do have a barrier 1 in the concrete, so I'm not worried about moisture coming through the concrete. It's more of the air. It's more of the conditioned space.
Thanks.
Al, with barrier 1, you cannot do a topical test with the poly as you described. You need to use a penetrometer test. The other test doesn't work with barrier 1.
We told the flooring company we had barrier 1, and they said we had to do this test. So we'll probably end up doing both tests, one to satisfy them and one to satisfy us.
Ask a question about that as well,
Yes,
please?
go ahead.
Al, you said you're worried both about rain and or humidity. Is that right? Either of those things would affect the timeline?
Yes.
So knowing what we know about August in Connecticut, do we have a backup plan? Like what happens if we are shut out and it can't proceed the way you envision that it would?
I would say we wait for the DOAS to be installed and then put the floor down. And then we would have the permanent environmental systems in place.
Sure.
Now we do have temporary air conditioning units coming on Monday because the flooring inside the classrooms also needs environmental conditions as well. We have to be between 60 and 80 degrees temperature wise, and we have to be below 60% relative humidity. So we do have the ACs coming in just for those hot days when we may go over 80 degrees.
And are those floors wood too?
No, they're a vinyl product.
Thank you.
There's approximately a month's period between when the DOAS gets turned on and the completion of the building. So during that month period is when there's a lot of testing, balancing, etc. But it's for all intents and purposes operational. It's just a function of making sure all the pieces are working as initially intended. So there is a period there as the backup plan, to Mary's point, for the wood flooring in the gym, because that's not holding anything up as long as it's not interfering with the furniture assembly and delivery.
Right.
Does the wood itself of the gym floor need to acclimate for any period of time?
Yes, it does.
And how long is that? And how much does that conflict with the F&E?
Well, the flooring, it just comes in on pallets, and it just acclimates to that space. But we have to have the environmental controls in place. Like if we were to do it with the temporary AC units, we would have to have those ACs in place and running. We'd have to have fans and we'd have to have dehumidifiers going, and we'd have to monitor that for, at least a week or two before the wood arrives, just so we know that we have a constant environmental atmosphere for the wood. I'm just saying that because we shouldn't rush the installation of the wood if we're not sure about the environmental conditions. That's all I'm saying. And I think Colliers would agree that it'd be better. It could be better to wait until the permanent HVAC is on before we do that. But we'd have to, we'd have to check at that time. We'd have to get our controls in there for a few weeks and see if it maintains the environment that we're looking for.
Okay, and then in regards to the procurement log, is there any progress on anything? Are there anything that's taken a turn for the worse?
Well, we got some good news with the skylights. We're getting all the skylights in except for one, but it's the one above the main stair. And that's coming in November. See if I can pull it down on it.
I think you said 1025 today for the last skylight.
Everyone see this screen?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Okay. So the skylights, Ben's got 10/28. That's the ship date, so we'll get it early November. And that's the rectangle skylight above Pier 2, which is the main end, the grand staircase, if you want to call it.
Right. But also for the committees, just some information, the building can still open without those skylights in place. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We'd come in off hours, even Thanksgiving break, or we could even come in Christmas break if we had to, and it would take a couple of days, probably 3 days.
Just so long as the place for the skylight is sealed for the weather.
Yeah, it's sealed up right now, watertight, so it's not an issue right now. But the skylights for the gym and the other areas throughout B and A are coming in time.
Okay, that's good.
We'll be ordering his Wolf Gordon wall covering tomorrow if the extra gets approved tonight. But that's not critical. I can go. We can paint and do the wall covering when it becomes available. Warm and cool we talked about. That's 10/3. The DOAS, yeah, the end of July shipping. Generator 8/26.
Just to confirm back on the coverings, the main coverings that were around the building already, those have been ordered, correct? We're just talking about the potential for the other two.
Correct. The digital wall coverings are the only thing pushing. The Impro is all set. That's the main wall covering. That's throughout all the corridors. Everything.
Okay. Are there questions for Al regarding schedule or procurement? Okay, I don't see any then.
Just to report back to the committee on one item that's been continuing to linger is, as of the meeting today, there still is not an update on those last pendant lights for the classrooms and a few of the outdoor fixtures. So there was one item that was reported on today that we just wanted to provide the update for.
Okay. Okay, then if there are no additional questions for Al, then we'll move on to the architect update. Thank you, Al.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, the only thing I'll say is that I issued another site observation report, and I'm working with Newfield on corrective measures for the items. I think the CMU block, we found out what happened with that. So I responded to that RFI. So we're going through each of these and just making sure that they're going to be doing things that are going to make sense and be appropriate to the project. So keep an eye on it. Other than that, I think we got roughly 80 to 100 more submittals to review. Just trying to stay ahead of the game on the RFIs as well. So just trying to keep the project moving and being critical and finding stuff without getting too crazy. But, you know, I have a tendency of wanting perfection. So
We don't fault you for that, Jeff. But could you give us a little more explanation about the CMU stuff and what?
Yeah, what happened was
satisfied, but what's the deal?
Well, what happened is I got an RFI, request for information, asking if we can cut the top course of the block. The drawings show full courses of stack bond, ground face masonry in both the service area as well as the gymnasium. In the gymnasium, I got a question asking if they can cut the top block because the coursing didn't work out. So back and forth.
I'm sorry, because the core, what didn't work?
The masonry coursing didn't work out for some reason. So that's when I went there to measure the block and see what coursing they used and what grout they used to make sure that what they were saying was true. And what we ended up finding out today was that there was a mix of block that varied in sizes. So that's what was causing it. So once you start out with like a 1/2 inch grout line from a 3/8, that 1/4 of an inch or compiles. And by the time you get to the top, you're at 2 1/4. So in the general conditions of the contract, there is a clause there that says that if the owner is okay with accepting a credit back, I talked to Taisu about it today, and he's okay. He's not happy about it, but he's okay about it, letting that be a cut block and move forward. I did notice today that they went ahead and cut the top block in all the service area without saying anything. So there was no question on that. So rather than have them take down the wall, which nobody wants, we accepted it, and hopefully we'll get a credit back.
Thank you. I'm intrigued. You say, hopefully we'll get a credit back. So even there's, as Richard told me, there's a standard for when, things are going, you open a book and you find out what the fees are. Is there no standard for this kind of thing at all?
Well, this is something that's interesting, because this is a general condition of the contract that talks about an agreement between the contractor and the owner. So that's something we'll have to be working closely with Colliers on a few things, just to make sure that we're not forgetting that. I will write a PR. I'll write something up and I'll submit it so that it's on record. But it's just one of those things where we just got to keep track of those things, so that anything that is quote non-conforming, whether it's a full course or a cut course, I just want to keep track of all that stuff, especially now that it's getting crazy and they're moving quite fast. I just want to make sure we have things like that documented, since we're having to pay for things. It's only fair that, we get some credits back.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Chris McNamara.
Thanks. Jeff, now that there's a lot more people on site, a lot more subs doing work, has Newfield increased the number of people providing oversight? Because it's a nightmare to try to keep track of everybody if you don't have enough eyes.
Yeah, every time I've been there, it looks like there's at least 1 or 2 guys there, and I've gotten to where I'm checking in with them frequently. Today, I actually talked with the fiber cement guy and just had a discussion with him, and then went back and talked to Ben about what the discussion was. There's a few things that I caught, but I figured it's a little bit quicker to keep the project moving, just to talk to that sub and say, look, just make sure that you do these 2 screws and make them line up. And then he agreed, he did it. I saw it. Okay, let's just keep moving. Just, because he's not thinking about things that I'm thinking about sometimes. And sometimes it's just, everybody's exhausted. Everybody's working hard. So I just, if there's a gutter that covers it, okay. But if you see it, I want to make sure that it's tight and it's perfect. So I've noticed that the guys are on the site and they're there. I mean, it's hard. I can't tell you for a fact that that's true or not true, but from what I've seen, it looks like they are trying. They're making an attempt to be on top of things. Certain things happen and I catch things, and then all of a sudden it's some issue with the drawing not being this or that. We go back and forth, but the bottom line, as long as we're proactive and we attack it and get it done, then everything's going to come out great. And we'll figure all that other stuff out later.
Right, but Ben can't be, it's a big site. He can't be all over the place. So does he have additional people that he relies on to watch the subs in different areas?
It appears to me that there is a guy named Brad there that they've hired that seems pretty good. And then there's that Ronnie who's there. I see him walking around a bit too. Other than that, I haven't seen much of Ray lately, but I think
Who's
Ray
the Josh guy?
Is it Josh? No, it's Ronnie.
Yeah.
Oh, Josh
Yeah,
is,
Ronnie,
I think Josh is Alan Ray's boss.
Yes, correct. He's the project executive. So to speak a little bit more about that. So they have, yes, Ben is largely helping Al with managing the paperwork and doing some of that high level items from the administrative side of things. Ray is still the project superintendent, and then assisting Ray, you've got Ronnie, who's doing a lot of the site coordination, and Brad, who is specialized in focusing on the envelope with the zinc panels and the Ipe wood and the roof and all that. So that way you've got some targeted focuses with those folks. Ray can be a little more broad focused on managing the overall quality of the project. And then Ben and Al in the trailer. And then on top of that, Josh, the project executive, has started coming to the meetings as well.
Rich, go ahead.
I was one of the lucky people who went to tour the school on Tuesday, and just fascinating to watch it come together finally. One of the things I noticed though was that those corner classrooms in second grade and fourth grade, the ones with that Chris Kiefner likes to call with the rich wild doors, they face a blank wall opposite them. And I was wondering, are we going to be looking at some kind of landscaping so that they're just not facing a blank wall? The entire window space of those classrooms faces that blank wall.
You have to pull the landscape drawings and see, but I believe there is quite a bit of landscaping around those pockets. I can't remember, are those doors to the breakout space there?
It's kind of, he's talking about in the little pocket
Let me pull the plan up
between
here.
B and C.
I got the Revit model. up.
The second grade and
Yeah.
the second grade and fourth grade classrooms, those corner rooms with the two doors.
Kind of the web of the toes or fingers.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll
It's the
I guess-
place where I told you leaves would gather.
I'm just waiting for the drawings to open here. I can't remember off the top of my head. I have to look at the drawings. Let's see. Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. I gotta open up. I got 1,000 things open right now. Let me see if I can do it quickly.
But if you come up with it, Jeff,
Yeah.
you can let us know. Are there other questions on other topics for Jeff? Okay, and seeing none, then Jeff, you can interject if you have something to add in a bit, but we'll move on to the OPM update.
So just a quick update on some of the other items separate from what Al was talking about. Big focus this week has been on the move out with the last day of school from the existing Southeast Elementary. So Monday was last day for students. Tuesday, teachers and staff doing the bulk of their packing up and putting things in boxes. And then yesterday was the sort of unleashing the floodgates from the movers to move the boxes over to Vinton and Goodwin. So as of today, the IT portion of the salvage is complete. The facilities group have a couple last cleanup items, but those should be wrapped up tomorrow. Otherwise, the 1965 wing is emptied, and Newfield has already started doing preliminary preparatory demo work and some of the abatement containment for the upcoming asbestos and PCV work. And the rest of the building will continue onward. So far, fairly successful move. No major issues, no major hiccups, and the moving crew has been great at getting the stuff into the trailers and moving them over to the other building. So that's a good start to this pretty critical 10-week period, or 11-week if you count this week, from emptying the building up through abatement and then ultimately demolishing the building so they can start on the site elements like the parking lot and that kind of thing.
And the fencing is up around the building now.
Yeah, so if you come by the site, the fencing's all the way out to Warrenville Road, so there's no longer that cattle chute back to the trailer.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I pulled up the landscape drawings. It looks like there is an array of what they call shrub massing / perennials ground cover along that whole wall there.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, Adam.
Oh, that's okay. So the other thing tonight was just an emphasis on where we're going and expectations over the next month and a half. So the key things, the key date, the next milestone date insofar as town interaction with the building and getting complete is that September 6th furniture move-in date. By that date, in theory, the entire building should be done except for some of these last minute DOES unit, skylight, things of that nature. The other thing to keep in mind is by the end of July, we should have portions of the building, like the lower portion of B, complete, where Jeff is going through and he's doing his final punch list of, this item here, that item there that needs to be wrapped up. But that's the sort of meters, the yardstick that we're measuring to identify, is this really going to be done on time? Is in a month, the bottom portion of B should be done. So that's something to keep in mind as we kind of look at, endless schedules and procurement logs and all that. That's how we know whether or not we're actually hitting the milestone dates that we should be hitting. And if at the end of July, B wing isn't close to done, we'll know that there's a substantial problem. But we've asked today at the owner meeting, and Al reiterated again, they're showing that they still have that as being on track with their completion. So we're monitoring that on a weekly basis to make sure that's actually true.
Adam, on that, that's really nice that they say that. You go to meetings and you hear that. All good. Paperwork looks good. But what does it look like to you when you walk in there and when you see other parts of the building? Does it make your heart pitter pat or race or what?
Insofar as the areas in B, for example, no, my heart doesn't pitter pat. I and Joe and Scott, when we've been having our side discussions, the things you don't see are the things that might give us more pause. So for example, there was a question over the past couple of weeks about power and shutdown and transfer over and starting things up. It's good that the switch gears appears to be about to be signed off on and power could be on as soon as Monday. That's the kind of stuff that's giving us greater concern, where until it's done, it's not, we're not taking it at face value that it should be done. I don't care. Show me that I can plug in something in an outlet and then I'll believe it's done. So those are the kind of things that we're monitoring versus, millwork or painting or, that can be done very quickly to get up to where it needs to be. But it's some of those long lead infrastructure items like power or fiber or some of the IT stuff. That's the kind of stuff that needs to keep tracking along. And it's good that the power is getting solved, early next week. But there's a number of those more that still need to be hit. And if they're hit, then I have reasonable confidence that they can start closing out some of those spaces. But again, they need to continue actually hitting those milestones, and the quality of work when they get into the last bit of finishes needs to be tight. So Jeff doesn't walk through at the end of July. They say we're done, and he goes, what is this? This got a million long punch list. You're not done. Then we're going to have the problem. So.
Can you comment on that too? You just mentioned quality of work. Are you seeing a consistent quality of work? Changes as we're kind of squeezing more people in there to work? How's it looking from your point of view?
Unsolvable. It's also not the most pristine issues of quality of work ever, as noted by some of Jeff's lists and items that he's picking apart. Nothing that hasn't been able to be solved with a note and a fix. But again, as we get down to the wire, we can't have a million of those, otherwise it's never complete.
Yeah, so what I'll start doing for the team is just getting in. So once the B is relatively done, or if I need a call to get over there to look at the siding, and I told them today that whatever it takes, I'll do that. So if they can get it ready for me, I'll just go through and then we'll sign off on the B wing, the lower level, and then we'll just start working our way up and over to the C, and we'll just do that each time. And then I'll just take a walk early in the morning overall, see if there's anything I can give them a heads up on early before we get there, so that we can make sure this thing is done on time and done with the quality that we want. So it's going to get exciting in the next couple of months, that's for sure.
In terms of quality, I think the item that is one of the bigger focal points is the building envelope, not just because it has to perform excellently as part of net zero construction, but because the roofing was delayed, some of the siding install was delayed. And so if we're just thinking about the raw amount of work, that's the most amount of work and the most timely amount of work. And it can be wrong because there's a lot of pieces that have to be put in the correct order with the correct product at the correct time. And you have to get that sequencing correct. Whereas, if you paint a wall poorly, you just go back and paint the wall again, and that can be done, in an hour or so. So that's the kind of thing that I know that, when Jeff and I have been talking on the site and offline, That's his laser focus for quality is getting that thing right, because if it's not right, it can be hard and timely to correct.
Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, so we were doing that fog testing to hopefully identify any penetrations in the envelope. Is that an ongoing thing, or was that a one-time thing, or how does that, like, before we get to the blower door test, which probably will be pretty delayed since we have to keep that one window up for the DOAS unit to come in. Is there anything we can do in the meantime to try to identify any of these holes, for lack of a better word?
Very, very timely question. So we had 3 fog tests under that proposal a couple months ago. We've done 2 of the 3. At the second fog test, one of the items that came up was some penetrations in the roof underneath or at the A wing portion of the building. And so there was a concern as to what was causing it. Newfield believes, and when they're talking with the roofer, that they found the issue and that they've sealed it up and they think it's resolved. But to that point, because we can't do the blower door test, where the discussion today at the owners meeting was, do we retest that portion of the building or just presume that they fixed it and then wait for the blower door test? The overwhelming thought was, let's test that portion of the building again so we don't wait and then find out that there's still micro holes in NA. So Joe Luciano with Colliers, he's been working with the fog testing folks, and he's checking into their schedule. To that point, there may be at the next committee meeting a request to facilitate another 1 or 2 fog tests, so that way we can ensure that A wing is correct, and then use that additional test to test C wing. So that might be a good use of, I think it's like $1,000 or $3,000, something like that. I'd have to look it up, but that's the proactivity to not just wait until the blower test is done, because you're correct, it's not going to be able to be done until August, after the DOAS unit is in and they've sealed up the curtain wall and all that.
So I haven't seen a fog test, but from the way it sounds like it's a fairly gentle kind of thing. I have observed numerous blower door tests, and that is definitely the next level of like intensity. Like that fan that they hook up, at least for residential applications, is a pretty serious fan. And so I guess my question is, fog seems very gentle, blower door seems pretty substantial. Is there anything in the middle we should be considering doing to prep to make sure? Because quality control has been a concern along the way, and I just don't want to, like, we're just using this gentle fog to hopefully find some penetration. I'm concerned we do the blower door test in August and all of a sudden we find stuff that we didn't find the first time.
The fog test is what was recommended by this consultant, and we talked about it with our commissioning agent as well, in terms of what would be the most appropriate way to address these problems in advance. With the fog test, yes, the fog itself is not nearly under the same building scale pressure, but it's more like a scalpel versus the hatchet of the blower door test. So instead of the blower door test pushing against everything, including just walls with drywall and stuff that's not going to leak because it's just in the way, you've got a person that's very narrowly going around the penetrations and all the details with this pressurized fog. So it's not just floating around and then maybe it leaks out. It's getting put with some force, but precisely where it needs to be and where they've seen issues or potential issues. So it's a different method. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Adam, you have other items you want to present?
No, I think it might make sense to jump into the PCOs now, because there might be some discussion on some of those.
Okay, if the committee's ready, we can move on. All right, let's start talking about PCOs.
All right. Pull that up real quick. Okay, so it should be staring at, looking at my PDF screen. So just to start off, there was one PCO that was approved on an expedited basis with the subcommittee. This was for $4,324.10 for salvaging some of the existing playground equipment. So the intent for this is that it'll be donated to Mount Hope. The pieces in question are this fire truck and this slide. And the cost is for the actual playground installer who's certified in installing playground equipment to remove it in such a way that it can be reinstalled later without just hacking off pipes and damaging them. So they'll remove it, and then I believe it's Mount Hope will be coming in and installing it in their facilities. So there's no action item for the committee tonight. This is, like I said, this was already approved on an expedited basis because they needed to have the vendor on board to do the actual salvage on Monday. So they need to get all the paperwork in advance and get them lined up because it's their busy season. Any questions on that just before I move on?
So that's coming out Monday or Tuesday.
Correct. Weather depending, yes. So moving on to we'll just go in numerical order here. PCO 24 R3. This one has been around for some time, and we were going back and forth with Newfield and the electrician about the scope here and the costs. So this is to add power to the telescoping bleachers for $14,800. Jeff, do you want to talk more about this?
Yeah, it's something that was caught before they poured the slab during coordination, that when the submittal process came in, that the bleachers actually required power, and the drawings didn't show it from our electrical engineer side. They assumed it was a manual one. So we caught it during coordination, and they got the conduits in before they poured the slab. And then this is following that. It looks like it's a lot of raceway, 3/4 inch EMT, anything basically from the bleachers to the panel. A lot of control modules. They had to revise the panel legend, add disconnect support, things like that. So it was actually high. It was actually high. It was actually higher originally, and we got it down to the 14.8.
Okay, questions on that? Okay, so this was put in, Newfield put in the conduit. Thank you. They put in the conduit without having this approved. They put that in, some time ago. But is there a motion from the committee to approve PCO 24? Chris, sorry, thank you. Second. Rich, thank you. All in favor of approving PCO 24? Please give me a sign.
Sorry, which Chris was it? I didn't see.
Oh, Chris McAvoy.
It was never going to be me, Natasha.
Okay.
I was
any
kind of waiting,
opposed?
Chris, seeing if it was going to be you or me who said, how did this get overlooked? This is a big one.
Okay, so we have a we already took the vote on to approve. Is there any opposed or abstentions? Okay, I think that one passed then. Okay.
Next is PCO 39R2. This is for some of the technology revisions, again, from a while back. Jeff, again, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, scroll down. Let me see the backup. I don't have this one printed out in front of me. Yeah, zoom in on that. Let's see.
It's like an extra speaker. Some
oh, no, yeah, because, the small music classrooms, I think, Kelly, we had discussed that we actually needed to add to them some digital interactive displays and some other things in there and the staff lunchroom as well. Yeah, so speakers, some jacks for the interactive displays, things like that, because originally we didn't have those in there.
Well, I'm willing to move, we approve this.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Chris McNamara seconds. All in favor of approving PCO 39 for technology components, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is PCO 52R3. So this one is interesting. So it's for $41,000. The scope here is for metal deck infill at the edges of the roofs for A and B wing. So let me pull up the detail here. So basically the way that the section cut in the drawings didn't show metal deck extending past the wall line, and it had a note for wood blocking to support the insulation. When coordinating with the roofing manufacturer required that it be metal deck to support the insulation, and wood blocking was unacceptable. So this scope was originally authorized under a time and material basis as a construction change directive, meaning that we obligated Newfield to do the work while the costs were being tracked, and the who owns the scope, so to speak, should Newfield bought that metal deck or not, was being ironed out. This extends at a number of conditions, both at the A and B wings and at the C wing. After all of the work was complete, we received Newfield's change order with all the tickets, and Jeff and myself and Scott looked at the detailing, and ultimately we found locations at the C wing where metal deck was shown to extend to the edge of the roof. So we've indicated to Newfield that we don't think that's an additional cost. And moreover, while we agree that there should be some additional cost for the metal deck that wasn't shown, there should be a credit for some of the wood that would have been in its place. Right now, the roofer is, and Newfield by extension, disagrees on the scope for the C-wing roof and disagrees that there should be a credit for the wood blocking. Its PCO is $41,000 for the A and B wing roofs only, because it does not yet include a credit for any wood decking or wood support, wood blocking underneath the insulation, because there's that discrepancy. Normally, we would just wait until this has been ironed out before putting it in front of the committee. The reason why this is being put up tonight for potential approval is because the state has a time requirement to submit any change orders within a 6-month period from the time the first, they call it the ticket, is submitted for the time and material work. And we're coming up close on that deadline. So rather than wait for this to get ironed out over months and months and then miss the deadline and potentially miss out on some reimbursement, the intent is to approve this PCO to authorize the payment for Newfield. We've indicated here that a claim is still being pursued for the wood blocking, but that way the scope is sort of in, if you will, on the deadline for the change order and for state reimbursement on this portion of the work.
So potentially at some point down the line, we would have a credit that we would entertain as well for the work.
Correct. So of this A and B wing, of this A and B wing scope, there's the $41,000 cost. Jeff and my math on what the credit for the wood blocking should be totals $32,000 that we've asked Newfield for. So Newfield and Silktown, we're awaiting their response. It is anticipated that they will say they owe none of that $32,000, but that is the math that we've submitted for that credit back.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that explanation. That seems to be a clear explanation. Are there questions about that?
I have a question. I really don't understand the construction details here because I don't know how to read any of this stuff. But my question is, when you identify a problem, are you satisfied with Newfield's response and the corrections, and then we just negotiate over money? Or do you have some problem with Newfield's performance here?
Performance of this work, I don't have any issues with. I don't think that Jeff or Joe have seen any issues in the performance of the work. It was merely a disagreement over whether or not Newfield should have provided that under their base contract.
Well, can I just say something? All the roof plans have a note that say to provide wood blocking under any unsupported insulation. Structural steel always shows the decking to the column line. Structural steel also had a bunch of stiffeners that were in that area. That's why we put the wood blocking note in there. Different manufacturers require different things for different warranties. So Firestone happened to say, you know what, decking's better, make it all steel deck. We don't want the wood. So another manufacturer may say it's okay. So it's one of those things where, you know, I just want, per the contract documents, a note that it states very clearly to provide wood blocking at all soffit edges in the entire project, wherever it is. So we're going to be pursuing aggressively the credit back for the wood blocking. And I'll leave it at that.
But the quality of the install is not in
It's
question.
fine. It's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Steve,
Thank you.
Steve, you had your hand up?
So if we approve this tonight because we want to stay within the 6-month window, but we disagree on the amount of the credit back in the future, what is our recourse?
So that's something that we can address as part of closeout and final negotiations once we get to final certifications for payment, release of, and when you go through and you identify the final punch list and you go to release retainage, you do a process of understanding what is still remaining to be addressed or credited. So we can address those as part of those project completion closeout cost items and these final negotiations. There's a number of PCOs and claims that Newfield has submitted that have not yet been finalized and been ready for the committee. As you imagine, there are items for the DOAS unit and things of that nature. So each one of those would need to be resolved as part of those final discussions and negotiations before the contract is closed out.
So that comes up to a negotiation or some type of arbitration. It's not just like one party saying, this is what we're willing to give you, take it or leave it.
Right. All right. We would follow if it escalates beyond just the getting in a room and hashing it out phase, then we would follow the contract in terms of, I forget if it's arbitration or litigation that we've identified in our AIA contract, but it would go through those processes and steps as part of that formal disagreement process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is there a motion then to approve PCO?
I'll move, we approve it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Is there a second? Chris McNamara seconds. Thank you. All in favor then of approving PCO 52, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay.
Okay. The second to last PCO is PCO 82. This is for $4,800 for basically the integration and testing of the fire alarm with the security system. So as designed, and it's a acceptable way to manage the system, you can have your separate fire alarm and security systems independent of one another. In coordination with Jamie, with the IT department of the town, there's a strong desire to integrate those systems and simplify them so it all runs through through the security system. So that requires a little bit of changing out some of the products and materials to make sure that they talk, as well as some additional testing. So this $4,800 is to basically address the town IT's wish to have the systems be integrated.
Chris McNamara? Oh, where'd you go? Oh, you moved. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I move that we vote on this.
Move to accept?
Randy,
Yeah.
would you like to have questions after a second or now?
We can. So we have a motion to approve.
I'd be happy to second it.
Okay, seconded by Chris Kiefner. And then do you have a question too, Chris?
Yes, I'm just curious, like where this might have been noticed before, like why it wasn't sort of the norm. It sounds to me like this is the kind of thing that is normal nowadays. Where might it have been decided? Where should it have been decided? Yeah, it wasn't, I get it, but where should it have been decided earlier on? And, well, actually, I have two questions. One is, would it have cost us the same amount in addition? And would it be another $4,800 if we found out about it, if we put this in the original specs? Or is this like a surcharge because, caught you, you didn't think of this?
Well, this would have been extremely difficult to try to pick up early. This came out.
I'm sorry, you're chopping up a little bit. Can you say that again?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. I think it's.
Yes.
Perfect. So this came out of some very last mile type discussions with Jamie and Newfield and the vendors. And actually it came out of some of the discussions with Frontier, the phone provider, and how to identify the number of phone lines and how they all wanted to play with one another as part of the last mile moving services and contracts and things like that. So out of that discussion, there was oh, wait a minute, maybe this makes more sense type of moment that really was because of those last mile items that to be honest, I'm not sure that there would have been a reasonable way to catch that early on. But to your second question, it would have effectively cost the same amount then as it is now. It's not like there's a bonus whammy. It's still going through the same.
That's what I was kind of thinking was the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, other questions on this? All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve PCO 82. All in favor, please indicate. And any opposed or abstentions? Okay.
So the last PCO, and then there are a couple of procurement allotment related items. The last PCO is PCO 90, but it's sort of tied into the educational display wall discussions that have continued throughout the project insofar as making the building a little more educational and having some additional graphics and things of that nature. So Randy, do you want me to talk about the PCO first, or you want to talk a bit about the IKD's discussion?
Well, how about there's three options. So maybe can you show where these walls are?
Yeah. So this is obviously the floor plan of the building. And so what we're talking about is some of the larger walls in these southern vestibule areas, in addition to the energy dashboard wall. So one of the topics that came up a while back was having IKD do some preliminary designs. The committee approved that $10,000 feeler number, if you recall, to get some initial designs and understand what might be possible or practical or desired for some graphic displays on these larger walls. So IKD provided some initial thoughts for 3 of the walls. After some initial discussions with the educational wall subcommittee, that was boiled down to potentially having one wall with a design, which you can kind of see over here. It didn't have the whiteboard in the design, but it basically this style of graphic on one of those walls. In parallel, there was an update from Jeff with 2 of the walls that didn't have some of these line tree color trees that are around the building. So the 2 scopes of work we're talking about here are PCO 90, which is to Newfield, which is to add in the custom wall coverings at two of these larger walls to match some of the color trees around the building. I'm not going to zoom in here because it's a small plan. So this wall covering would go here, which is not currently in their contract, Newfield's contract. And this line color wall would go here. I'm sorry, here. So that's PCO 90.
And this would match the pattern that is found in a number of the other hallways, especially around the cafeteria. So they can go by the main stairs, by the support wing up above the cafeteria. So they have that design in there already. This would be to add essentially 2 more walls with that design.
Can I just say something though?
Go ahead.
The reason why this came out, we had those 2 walls in with IDK when they reviewed it with the building committee and everybody, and everything was looking great. What then, I don't know, it was Newfield or the Scholar Painting or whatever, somebody said, hey, wait a minute. The addendum number 1 and the drawings just showed a piece of wainscoting there and didn't show that as being potential trees, because those were designated as some other kind of art wall later. So that's where these 2 walls have come up now, is that they were part of the overall IDK sort of plan for the trees, but somebody found that during the addendum way back when, addendum 1, that we just had a small portion of wainscoting that was to be allocated there, not these tree patterns. So
right. So option 1 would be just to leave it a blank wall with the wainscoting. That wouldn't cost us anything additional. I think as part.
Yeah, so the as of right now, you would have on this large wall, you would have nothing drywall. There wouldn't be any special design on it. On this wall, you would have a couple of tack boards and wainscoting that's already in contract. On this large wall, you would have nothing. It would just be the painted drywall. And on this wall, it would also be nothing. It would just be the painted drywall.
So that's kind of the baseline. If we do nothing, we get white walls. So then option 2, so that's option 1. Option 2 would be to add the lines that would match the type of finishes in other places in the school, like that. And that would be for 2 of those walls. And then option 3 would be that IKD, that design there.
Square tree.
Yeah.
We call those line trees and square trees.
Square trees.
So
the line trees is 26,000, and the square trees around 37-ish.
Yeah, so the square trees is not yet fully specified and designed yet. So with the line trees, it's 26,000, and you will get those, and Newfield will procure them and install them. You know, they'll put in the order tomorrow. With the square trees, this is what has shaken out of the educational display wall process. IKD is asking for an additional, I believe it's $17,000 to finish this design, develop the specifications, the product materiality requirements, etc. And then they estimate that to actually install that wall would be another $19,000 or something like that. So this isn't even, this is not yet biddable, purchasable. It still would require probably another month or 2 of design effort, and then getting it procured for some amount of money that is probably around 20,000.
Okay.
Ryan has total of 36.
Yeah. So Ryan has had his hand up for a while, and then Mary after that.
Thanks, Randy. Just I guess a couple things. I happened to have a conversation with our director of building and housing earlier today, and we were mostly actually talking about other things, but at the tail end of the conversation, Mike mentioned that additional asbestos had turned up in the, or suspected asbestos, maybe is a way of putting it, in Southeast School, and that would have potentially some impact on the remediation that's being done as part of the demo. And I was just curious if somebody could confirm whether or not that has any implications as far as like the timeline of the demolition actually being extended, or if it's just a matter of potentially some additional cost. And then I guess I had one other question after that.
I can address that if you want.
Okay, if you can address
So-
it, and then we'll come back to
But
the.
just for the group, that topic is not related to the wall topic we're talking about for the color walls. But it is a timely point that Ryan brought up. So that came up early today as something that there was a question about insofar as some transite, which is asbestos material paneling in the existing facilities. Our hazardous materials consultant knew about those and wrote it into their specifications. As of now, it appears to just be a question. And so our Langen, our hazardous materials consultant, is working with the demo and abatement contractor to resolve that. It does not appear to be a grand issue to impact schedule. And as of now, there doesn't appear to be any additional cost to the project because it appears it was written in. But that is something that's being fleshed out. So it's in progress and hopefully should be resolved with some communication.
All right, thanks, Adam. I'll hold the other question until after done with the PCO.
Okay, and then I think Mary had a question, and then Tony.
I did. I
A
recall
comment.
from our educational wall subcommittee group that one of the things we settled on was the idea of student work, students being involved in some of the displays and decorations. And so I wonder if painting the vertical trees on those walls really helps us get to that goal. I know that the white seems kind of plain and bland, but you know, we know what happens when you put creative children and creative adults in a building and they make it their own. So I think right now I'm leaning toward the plain white.
Okay, then Tony, and then Chris McNamara.
All right, now I'm going to play my Philistine role. These colored lines on the wall never looked anything like trees to me. At best, they look like colored pencils. I never thought they would call up images of nature to any child who grew up anywhere on the East Coast. I don't know whether there's anything like this other places, but there certainly is nothing like that here. I like the drawing that ties real trees to squares of color because I think that might actually spark the connection. I'm not going to comment on cost because at this point I'm somewhat confused about where we are in our contingency. We continue to add stuff. I think we're probably pretty safe from what I remember. But anyway, I think this solves one of the problems that I've had with this painting all along.
Okay, and Chris McNamara.
You know, I have to say that if I had to pick the colored sticks, trees are more preferable to something that still requires $17,000 worth of design and then $20,000 worth of installation. I think I do a little work with public art in our town here, and I know Mansfield has had public art installed, and I could see us hiring a public artist to come in and work with the students to install something on a plain wall that would look really cool. This is not rocking my socks off. Those square trees are not doing it for me either. And I think it's a lot of money for something that we could do otherwise.
Okay, other comments or questions?
Can I jump in here with regard to the cost portion of it that
Sure.
Tony brought up? So the numbers that you have seen in the occasional updates on the contingency status and reserve funds and things. Those have always been, the cost of this educational display wall effort was already baked into those numbers. So from months and months and months ago, some money had been put aside for this educational display wall element. The current cost of this single wall, presuming that it actually, it stays at about 20,000 to install, and plus the 17,000 to design, fits within that budget. So were it to be accepted, it would not impact the projected contingency moving forward, so to speak. The three walls, for a comparison, if the three walls I had referenced with IKD, that was coming in at approximately $100,000 for design and construction for the three walls, which is partially why this was more narrowly focused down to the one wall that might make the most impact. So that's neither here nor there insofar as whether or not the committee feels this is a good use of funds. It's just I want to provide that data for financial responsibility portions of it, if you will.
Okay. Chris McNamara, did you raise your hand again?
I did, and I'm now speaking for Kathy Ward, who says she can't seem to make her microphone work on her phone to answer, and she says that she likes the idea I mentioned and Mary's idea of kids' work being on the wall.
Okay, all right, thanks. Chris Kiefner.
I think I could just echo every single thing that's been said, between the white wall being an invitation to work and an opportunity for kids and the local talent to do something interesting, and Tony's comment about haven't seen any trees like that. I fully agree. I don't really think it is even reminiscent. And I like the sticks or whatever, the pencils. But in any case, I think it's pretty clear to me that I'd like to move we reject this.
Okay, well, so we don't actually need a motion to reject. We don't actually need a motion to reject. Just if there's not a sentiment to, we would take a motion to pass it, and if there's not sentiment to even do that, then we would
keep things positive. Okay.
Yeah. People that are going to work in the schools, I don't know, Peter, Kelly, or Rich, if you want to weigh in.
Yeah, I'd like to just share. Go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're my boss. You go first.
Not yet. So Lauren weighed in on, she knows that wherever there's space, there's going to be student work. And while it's great to have a building that has that's vibrant with color and has artwork for a district that really prides itself for being student-centered, we know that it's important that the walls really make teaching and learning visible and transparent. And so Chris, when you were talking earlier, I agree with that. And I would encourage maybe a conversation at some other time. I know there was interest in the new MES logo being branded on one of the walls, and then the dashboard having some graphics around it.
So some other alternate ideas.
Okay. And I was just going to basically say the same thing. I really like the idea of the blank space that the kids can decorate and come up with a design for.
Okay. So Kelly?
Sure. Although it may not matter as much, I'm going to share my opinion anyway. I think that the comments about the striped lines looking like something other than trees is accurate. And one thing I'm going to ask Adam actually to go back to the squares. Yeah. If you can raise it up a little, there you go. See those tree trunks in the back there of colored lines. I mean, the one thing that I appreciate about this design is that it does tie things together. Maybe other people won't even notice it, but I just recall when we were first shown the design with the colored trunks, that there was a tree that looked sort of like this one in the presentation that was made to us, and it just made things more understandable, I guess. I don't disagree at all with student work being all about this school. I just want to remind you of the size and scope of this school and the size of these walls. And while I love the idea of bringing in a local artist, I will tell you that you're going to need to do some fundraising to do that, because it's not a whole lot cheaper to bring in local artists to do this sort of thing with kids. So my thinking is you've got the opportunity now, as you're designing the building with some available funding, to do something. And there is a possibility of using at least one of those walls. I don't know that you need all 3 walls. I think actually 2 walls would be across from each other, which I think would get pretty busy. But you do have an opportunity now that, as nice as it sounds to put kids' work on walls, we've got very big walls. And if you want to design something in the future, that's a very big project. So I'll stop.
Chris Keebner?
And Adam, can you help us understand? I mean, I feel like we should definitely go a different direction. I feel like we kind of were drawn down this.
Cut out for me. I don't know if it cut out for the rest.
Yeah. Chris, we've lost you. Okay. I think he was starting to say, anyway, I don't know, but yeah.
We're not happy. It's evident to me, I'm not happy. So, oh, shoot. Okay.
Chris, we lost.
How about now?
We missed most of that.
Okay. I'll, the idea is, could we go with another artist and still use the same money? And what's our time limit?
So to speak to that, the educational display walls conversation has been ongoing for about a month since I arrived here. So about 11 months it's taken to get from that initial motion to now. So I would, while anything is certainly possible, there is some just lag time between coming up with what is this additional item, conceptualization, getting the design put, procuring someone to do it, and then actually installing it in a time frame that aligns with project.
Adam, again, I don't mean to be curt. I really don't mean to be curt, but
sure.
We started 11 months ago. It doesn't matter.
Well, if I may, the key is going to be project closeout. So depending on how quickly you can do this.
How much time do we have that we can still different way?
Well, again, it really depends on when the building is complete and when the Board of Education accepts the project, and then you file to close the project out with the state. So let's just say that by February, the board, once the board accepts the project, it starts the 20-year timeline for when you can go back to the state if you wanted to do renovations or some other project. So, and also with your bonding, you want to close it out and consolidate your final bonds. So there may be, some short-term bans or some other financial implications that would be driven by project closeout and acceptance. So I would say you'd want to try and get this wrapped up by end of December, no later than February, because we're really going to be pushing to try and close the project out as quickly as we can.
So that's their
punch lists
thing.
are done.
So end of December, February, somewhere in there, January 8th. So I guess my point is that because if we don't spend it on this project, it doesn't mean we can't spend it at all. It means we still have the opportunity. We're saving it for another opportunity that we don't know about yet, possibly. So we're not throwing this opportunity away, is what I'm saying.
As long as it's spent by February.
Right.
Yeah. Tony, you have your hand up?
Yes, I may be one of the few people here who've actually participated in the search for artwork to go in a public place in Mansfield. And we were, Downtown Partnership wanted some sculpture on the town square, and we finally approved one. And I don't think it was a success, to tell you the truth. I don't think anybody notices it. They certainly don't pay attention to it. The kids don't play on it. So if you're going to talk, and it took us a long time both to decide and to raise the money to mount it. So I am strongly opposed to the idea, not strongly opposed. I think the idea that you're going to find somebody to do something local and fine in this building between now and February is wishful thinking. You know, I've been trying to figure out how to get some sculpture out of that the oak tree on the square that we still own, and that hasn't happened. So if you really want to put something artistic, I think there's a difference between decoration and artwork. If you want to decorate this, you can pick something pretty easily. But if you want artwork or if you want kids' work, I would go with white.
All right, so I think we've heard from just about everybody.
So Randy, to address your point earlier, on the IKD proposal, I agree. I don't know that there's necessarily a motion that needs to be made if the desire is just to put it to the side or not accept it. Obviously, if there was a desire to accept it, a motion would need to be made.
Right.
With regard to the PCO, if the intent is to not go forward with it, some motion should be made so it can be documented, and that way we can have that for the.
So we can close out that PCO. Okay.
That, I'm sorry, Randy, but that if we did that, it would be specific to this way of
PCO, to PCO 90.
as specified.
Yes.
Okay.
The PCO 90 is not the color square tree. That's the
Right.
line color trees.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the color pencils. So the question is, if there, so I guess we would still need a motion to approve PCO 90, and then it could, if people didn't want to vote for it, then you vote against. So that, I guess that would be the first approach there. So is there a motion to approve PCO 90? Which I think we need to do if we're going to vote it down.
Well, Randy, it could fail for want of a second.
Okay, that should work, right, Adam?
Yeah, just something to be clear.
So just so we can document that we're not
Point
going.
back to it and say there was a decision was made. Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve PCO 90? We would need at least a motion. Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Okay, is there a second? Okay, so thank you, Steve, for doing that, but the motion then with this would fail for want of a second. Okay, so then we would not proceed with the PCO 90. And so as we stand right now, those walls would be essentially blank with wainscoting. At least on, I don't know if it's wainscoting on everything, but at least on some of the walls that we have the wainscoting. Oh, Mary?
Just want to clarify one thing, because I'm looking at the draft motion right here, and it says for additional digital wall coverings.
Yes.
But
This
there
is
was-
not-
If
There
you're
was
voting,
nothing digital about those.
no, it's just they're just digitally drafted. They're not painting on the wall. They're
Thank you.
printed. Yes.
Thank you. Needed to expand my definition of digital.
That's
Gotcha.
we're so far technology advanced. Digital means physical.
So I'm not, am I not hearing really any support for the IKD concept either? Okay, so then essentially then what we would do is just say thanks, but no thanks, and we would not proceed with anything along those lines.
I'll second that, if that's a
Yeah.
motion.
It's not really a motion. Chris McNamara?
I hear what Tony says and what Kelly says about how time consuming it can be to get an artist to come forward, and I would be happy to help in that regard. I know Mansfield has used Rise Up before. I've used Rise Up to come up with artists, and I'm working with an artist right now that's doing an installation in Willimantic. And I looked at some things that he has just done in a public school. And I think we could, if the desire was there, we could come up with something within the time frame to use the state money.
Okay, so
I'd be happy to help on that if you're interested in my help.
On a logistics standpoint, I would offer two things. One is that there's a window of time between the early September, or mid-September, once all the moving and furniture is complete, and October, when the end of October, beginning of November, when occupancy is being targeted, where there's minimal work from Newfield at the interior, because for all intents and purposes, they're done at the inside. So if there was some mural or something going on, that would be the time frame to try to target where you wouldn't be impacting Newfield, but it would also be done prior to occupancy of the building. And the other element of this is just the procurement part of it in terms of costs and bidding and coordinating, which I can set up meetings with Charmaine depending on what the cost of some of that is, but just want to be cognizant of that because it gets, with the IKD proposal, there's going to be the question of procurement. We have to put this out to bid, or can Newfield do it? How do we tie those loose ends? So those are just the two things I offer if that's the route the committee is going down.
okay. Mary?
I just want to say one more time, in the larger committee, I've said this in the smaller design wall subcommittee, that I feel very strongly that the people who occupy the building need to have a larger say in anything that gets put on the walls for a long period of time than we, who, for most of us, don't occupy the building. I think that it's their space, it's what they live in and they work in, and it needs to reflect their everything, their values, their ideas, their goals. So I think if we move forward, we just need to make sure that that subcommittee involves even more people who occupy that building than just Lauren and Peter and Rich.
Okay, we'll take that under advisement then. Thanks, Mary. Okay, so I think that concludes all of our PCO discussion.
PCO, yes. There's a couple of just draft motions for the committee. I don't know if Ryan's item makes sense now, or if I leave it, obviously.
Ryan, if you're there, do you want to bring up your other question?
Yeah, thanks. And I apologize in advance if you hear a screaming toddler. He's mine. The other, I guess, more global question I wanted to ask, I know this comes up periodically, and I apologize if it actually came up in this meeting during a moment where I had to step aside, but it's a loaded question and there's a lot of moving parts, and the answer, of course, will be it depends, or it could be anything. But I guess I just wanted to know where things stand now. Obviously there's a lot of talk about the DOES unit. There has been a lot of talk about the DOES unit, what a key component that is, but what other aspects of the project that remain, whether it's, process related or supply and procurement related, what are the big things hanging out there that I guess pose the biggest risk to the overall timeline?
I'll see it, and then maybe Jeff or Scott want to add or supplement or change that. But for me, the biggest risks right now include, like you pointed out, some of those procurement question marks. So for example, there's whispers about the generator not having been shipped, and although it's not yet a critical level concern, it's one of those items that just pops up and you hear about that. Oh yeah, I was supposed to ship yesterday and it didn't. Okay, well, could you get the guy on the phone? Not yet. Okay, so those level procurement items are items that will persist, and at least as question marks, until approximately that August, September timeframe, when the DOAS unit's supposed to be on site and being just booted up, that kind of thing. The other element is the demo and abatement and site work. So far, that's gotten off to a good start this week in terms of their crews and actually getting into the building, doing some of their pre-work. But systematically moving through the building and taking down portions and releasing portions of the site for that site work, that's going to be that's potentially the biggest critical driver, because the certificate of occupancy currently depends on the critical path on those site related elements. And then I would say the third item, if I'm picking a top three, would just be these closeout of all of these items Jeff's picking up and pointing out, because those are the sort of the big items to be scared of in terms of procurement in the site. But that's not stopping, it's sort of being a death by 1,000 cuts if the quality of the completed work isn't done, and all of a sudden we can't punch out a room and we can't sign it off, and the building official won't give a certificate of occupancy because there's too many small items that are just missed as they work towards the end of completion here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, I think today they were talking about some exterior lighting and interior lighting as well that we're keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and certainly if, one of the critical milestones is going to be September, early September, when they've said the building was going to be done and ready to receive furniture. So if we're not ready to receive furniture, again, another critical milestone. And if we have to delay that, that will have sort of a domino effect of when we can get those furniture vendors back. If we have to delay it, where is the furniture stored? There's still windows that haven't been installed yet in significant areas. And as Jeff just pointed out, lighting concerns. So there's a lot of components. There's going to have to be a huge push out there to get this building even buttoned up to where they can start really running mechanical systems and finishing up finishes. And the entire design team and Collier's team, we're going to have to be extra diligent on watching the quality to make sure that the quality doesn't suffer in the next few months.
Steve?
I was on the phone for a portion of the discussion when it came to the gym floor. So I heard, but I couldn't comment. But I didn't hear how long it was going to take to install the floor once the conditions are ready.
Yeah, I can let me quickly look at the schedule Al had. My recollection was it was a couple weeks between acclimation, installation, painting, and sealing. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks. Give me a moment. I can pull up the schedule and we can just look at it together.
It's not a huge gym floor. Now it will take, there are some finish coats as well. With the new water-based ones, it goes a little bit quicker. They would probably, once the material's acclimated, which it should acclimate for at least a week, probably take 2 weeks to put down, then they're going to have to finish it. So probably another week there.
Yeah, so you should be looking at a screen. So it's about basically match what Scott just talked about. So 3 weeks worth of work at the end of July, beginning of August. And so the week prior of sitting in the building acclimating.
Yeah, I guess if it works out, I guess I'd be curious to know if we can fit it into the schedule to do this after receiving FF&E. Because if the contractor is concerned about getting it done properly before the FF&E, I'd rather not push the issue since he's the one doing it. If he's telling us, hey, I think I'd rather do it afterwards, if we can do that, if we can accommodate that, I think that would be a better way to go. Especially since it's a brand new floor and we're going to be doing all sorts of assembly and moving stuff around. I'd hate to have it scratched or damaged before you ever got to use it. So
yeah, that came up, and the answer to that question is that there's sort of a nicely built-in plan B on the other side of furniture, where furniture starts first week of September, takes 2 or 3 weeks of actual moving in and out. And then the DOAS unit is slated to start up at the end of September with the whole month of October for initial testing and balancing, that kind of thing. So you have about a month of conditioned, even though it's not perfect, but it's the final condition space for there to work with, which aligns with the week of condition acclimation and 3 weeks of install.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we can get back on schedule with the agenda. So the procurement,
Yes, so there are, there's no graphics here or anything. It's just the draft motions. The first one is for an allocation of $3,000 to IMTL, who's our testing agent on the main building, but there was never officially an allocation for them for their services on the intersection, which is non-reimbursable. So the point is to ensure there's a separate PO, separate purchase order with allocated funds for that, so we can compartmentalize it in our budget block. So
okay,
they've actually done the testing already. It's just we never formalized that allotment of money. So that's the first motion.
so is there a motion to approve 3,000, sorry,
I
3,000
so move.
for ITML? Okay, thank you, Chris. Is there a second? Chris McNabo. All in favor, please indicate. And any opposed or abstentions? Okay,
The second motion is to increase the amount on the purchase order for Michael Horton Associates, who they're the structural engineer, but they are also serving in the special inspection coordinator role. So they provide reports that basically look at all of the million different tests that are done for bolts and concrete and whatnot, and compile those, summarize those, and analyze those as the special inspector, and then convey that report to the building official. So it's a required service. And so they have exceeded the amount we originally allotted for them as part of the initial wave. So this is just to increase their amount. It's very similar to the way that we do the testing, where we release the funds in chunks rather than just have a big pile of money sitting out there. So this is to increase their amount by $4,000 as part of those ongoing services.
I so move.
okay, thank you. Is there a second? Chris McNabo again. All in favor, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. And then that brings us to the invoices and pay applications.
So this month's pay application, and again, I apologize for the last second scramble. There was some additional changing of the numbers needed as part of some of the state requirements. So Newfield's pay application needed to be revised, and we didn't get the final version until this morning. We looked at it, reviewed it. It looked to be all in order. So that's what delayed the pay application. But the invoice total for the entire month is 3.6 million, 3.3 of which is to Newfield. Just for everyone's reference, their actual pay application is for 3.8 million of work having completed. So they're coming close up to the $4 million a month mark. It's just they needed to adjust some of their withholding to align with some of the state requirements. So that's why it's reduced from 3.8 to 3.3, is because of those additional withholding funds that we need to comply with. And then invoices from the town's arborist tree care services for a tree that needed to be removed along the road as part of Eversource requirements. Some of the equipment arrived from Atlantic and from GovConnection. We've got CES, our commissioning agent, the Collier's monthly invoice, IMTL's materials testing for both the building and the intersection, some special inspection invoices from Michael Horton that we just talked about, the monthly TSKP invoice, pay app number 3 from the Nunez companies for the intersection, and then Newfield's pay app number 13.
Okay, are there questions on this? Then is there a motion regarding these invoices and the pay application? Mary?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve monthly invoice packet for May, dated today, June 23rd, including invoices from Arborist Tree Care Services, Atlantic, CES, Collier's Project Leaders, GovConnection, IMTL, MHA, and TSKP Studios in the amount of $256,900 $929.65, along with the Nunez Company's application for payment number 3 in the amount of $29,148.49, and Newfield's application for payment number 13 in the amount of $3,343,730.87, for a total approval of $3,629,809.01.
Okay, thank you for the motion. Is there a second? Rich, thank you. Any final questions? Seeing none, then all in favor of approving the motion, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you. All right, then that brings us to our opportunity for public input. I don't see anybody from the public that is here, but I would like to take a moment just to say thank you to Kelly. This is Kelly's last meeting as superintendent of the Mansfield schools. And this project wouldn't have happened without Kelly's very considerable input behind everything to do with getting the school, the whole project launched. And so I want to say thank you for that, Kelly. Thank you for all your service on this committee as well. And we'll miss you. And I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in, but I at least wanted to acknowledge that.
I did all my crying earlier today. I'm cried out.
But we will look forward to having Peter fill that office. Tony?
Yeah, I just want to say that, I've been on the council since 2009. And when I came on, we had the first debacle around whether or not there should be a single school. And the transformation in this town between acceptance of consolidation into a single school and absolute opposition is totally amazing. And I think Kelly can be credited with the entire process. Not only did she bring new leadership in terms of design and academic goals, but she really made a difference in terms of getting the public involved and engagement in a way that makes this whole process really possible. And I'm really delighted to be part of this committee. And I know I speak also for Paul Shapiro, who lived through the same catastrophe. And that's not the only catastrophe we lived through, but it was a big one. And I said this when the council acknowledged Kelly's leaving, but there's absolutely no question that this committee would not be functioning if it had not been for her leadership. So we will be eternally grateful.
Mary?
I would echo much of what Tony said. And I think that, Kelly, the way that you did that was by helping people to really see the benefit of this, the transparency at every step of the way. You're leaving an indelible mark, and thank you.
And she,
I'll go ahead, Tony.
She better come back for opening.
I think so.
So I was on the Board of Ed a long time ago when Gordon was trying to get a new building. He was agitating for a new building. So it is really very exciting to see not just a new building, but exactly what people have said. Kelly's vision is really, it's in the building. And I think the teachers are going to be growing into it. The district is still going to be growing into it in ways they don't realize because of insights that Kelly has in terms of the design and the earnestness, Kelly, with which you went at this whole project. It's really stimulating. It's been stimulating, continues to be, and thank you very much. I've been really pleased to be a part of it.
Well, thanks, everybody. I've said all along from the beginning of everything we've done here that no one person does all of this alone. And it's because of really talented staff that I have and a community that trusts and supports us like almost no other community I've ever worked for, that's for sure. So I've truly enjoyed this work. I I think it was Ryan earlier today, like, 2 years ago, I tried to plan this departure with the opening of the building, and I'm very disappointed that hasn't happened, but I believe with your capable, in your capable hands, this project's gonna come to a really fabulous conclusion, and you bet I'll be back. Maybe more than once even. So thanks, everybody.
All right, well, thank you, Kelly. So on that, I guess kind of sad note, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All right, thanks, Chris. And second, then Mary, and see you later.
Thanks, Randy.